Okay, welcome everyone. I am super excited about this video. In today's video, I want to talk about PMO Resource Execution Consistency. If you've been watching my YouTube for a while, you know that I focus on both PMO and project management, and today's focus is really around PMO leadership. So really important. I want to make sure you guys set that context, and let's jump into it. I love this topic. I absolutely love this topic because when you're running a large PMO, one of the key things that you really want to make sure you're focusing in is on the consistency and how your project managers and program managers are running their projects, okay? Because if they're not running things in a consistent manner, it makes it much more difficult to be able to scale across your organization. Right? It's a huge problem for PMO leaders, right? As a PMO leader, if you don't have your project managers and program managers doing the exact same things across the projects, do you realize how much harder it will be for you to get in there and help supporting them? Let's just keep driving because I'm really understanding why this is so important for PMO leaders. Right? When you don't have that consistency and you do have serious project problems and you're called in to help, how are you possibly going to be able to know how to help? Right? If one project manager is running a project one way, another project manager is running another way, how do you get that consistency? Here's another problem. What if 5 of your project managers, for example, were running projects for finance and they all had one customer? They all had their own status reports, they all had their own risk and issue logs, they all handled changes differently, they all handled the red, yellow, green conditions. What if that one customer in finance was dealing with 5 different project managers and all doing things 5 different ways? That's a huge problem. Number 2, you lose consistency and repeatability across your projects. Right? And so that's a huge problem. If you take one project manager and you have to shift that project manager to a different project, you want them to be able to pick up and know exactly where the SharePoints are, where the Google Drives are, where the risk and issue logs are. So it's that consistency and that repeatability to allow one project manager to transition. And again, I have to go back to really number 3, or really the biggest, most important point here is your customer experience, right? If customers are dealing with red conditions from one project manager and a different red condition from another project manager, it's really frustrating to be able to go, well, what, like you said red was this and you said red was this. We really have to have that consistent structure. What do you guys think? Right? Comment below if you've seen that before. I'm really interested. Okay, now let's get into why we're seeing this. Why are we seeing this across PMOs, and why are PMO managers letting this happen? Well, let me give you my thoughts, my opinion. First, the more experienced project managers tend to be a little bit more set in their ways, right? Some of the more experienced project managers who have maybe not worked in PMOs before, they know how to run projects. They have done it for years and years, but they may have not worked in a PMO, and therefore they're not required to follow these sets of standards. They're not looking across, well, what happens if I have to transition my project? Because they've not worked in a PMO, they've never had to transition their projects, right? So those senior project managers who are a little bit more stuck in their ways, they're not looking for that consistency and that repeatability. Secondly, some PMO leaders don't require this level of consistency, right, from their PMs. So they put themselves in this inconsistent problem, right? They put themselves in this spot because they're not saying all projects use this red condition, all projects use this SharePoint site for risk and issues, or they use this format for risk and issues, so we can compile that up and put great dashboards and reports. So some PMO leaders actually put this into their own hands and their own problems. Third, PMOs often don't have consistent sets of process and procedures. So sometimes they don't have standard SharePoint sites. Sometimes they don't have standard risk and issue logs. And when they don't actually have the things for the PMs to follow, then how can you possibly blame the PMs for not following them, right? So you've got, as a PMO leader, you've got to get those things set up. Wow, does that make sense? Right? Again, have you seen that before? Right? So here's what I want you to do. I want you to actually comment below. Okay, I want you to go in there and say, hey, I'm running a PMO and I'm seeing consistency. Or I know I need to have a standard red condition, a standard yellow condition for our projects, or even a standard red or green condition. So do comment below, okay? Okay, now what I want to do is I want to dive into some possible solutions. So what can you do? First, you have to stress the importance and the consistency across your PMO of doing things in a consistent manner. You've got to get project managers to buy into, we need standard risk and issue logs, standard change control processes, standard status reporting, standard color conditions. You've got to drive that, right? Secondly, you have to set those standards. Right? You have to have a SharePoint site or a Google Drive or a LAN drive. You've got to have a color conditions. You've got to have a standard status report. You've got to help the PMs drive that consistency by getting those consistency and those standards set up. You want standard process and procedures for everyone to follow as they execute on their projects. And three, not two, three, you have to focus on your customer experience, right? That example of one customer in finance that are dealing with 5 project managers. Listen, you've got to think about that customer experience. If that customer has to go, okay, he thinks red is this, and he thinks red is that, and she thinks red is this, it's a miserable experience. You don't want that. So put yourself in the place of the customers, right? Put yourself focused in on what's that customer experience, especially if they're running multiple projects, because you want that consistency over and over. It's going to allow you to scale, it's going to allow repeatability, and it's going to allow project managers to take over other project managers' projects, because that happens all the time. Does that make sense? And it's a much easier transition. What do you think? Comment below. I'm dying to read your comments. I'm dying on this. This is such an important topic to run a large PMO, or to run any PMO really. So quick reminder, if you like these stories, if you like this content, please like the video, subscribe to my channel, hit that little bell notification, and as I release new videos, you're going to be notified. Okay, what I want to do now, and it's a huge passion for me, I want to ask you to go watch my next video on PMO communications. I've written 2 books on the topic. I absolutely love the topic. Go check it out. Thank you very much, and I'll see you online.